a brief overview of all of the maintenance, and it kind of helps you out a little bit. All right. So what are we looking for? When we get a car in and we're inspecting tires, and quite honestly, any car that comes in the shop should be getting the tires inspected. Even if the repair order just says it's there for an oil and filter change, or just for, maybe an oil and filter change and check brakes. Anytime that car is in the shop and up on the lift, you should be inspecting the tires on a customer's car. On your own car, or just as your parents' vehicle or a personal vehicle, you should be checking them periodically, and we'll go over that a little bit more. Some of the things, what are we looking for? We're going to be looking for, obviously, damage to the sidewall. If we have any damage to the sidewall, maybe from a pothole or a curb contact or any kind of road debris, this is definitely a major problem, and this tire needs replaced. This is very unsafe condition in the sidewall like that. We are checking tread depth, okay? As we have right here, we have a tread depth gauge, and Pennsylvania state minimum is 2/32 of an inch at the lowest point of the tire for the legal limit. Over here is an example of looking at the tread depth gauges built into the tire, or the wear bars as they call them. That wear bar is designed that when that is touching the ground, you're at the minimum wear specification. All right, but you have to be careful when you're inspecting tires. As you can see on this one, the inside edge is worn out a lot more than the outside edge. So you may only see this part from outside the car. You might actually have to get the car up on a jack and look on the inside, or turn the front wheels, so you can see the inside, and make sure you're checking all the way across the tire. We're also checking tire pressure, setting it the specifications, checking it regularly. This is overlooked all the time by most people. Usually people don't check their tires until they look like they're flat, and that's too late. So we're always checking tire pressures and putting them to spec. And then down here, we have a little picture of a bunch of different wears. It's always good to have some form of a tire wear chart. It doesn't have to be this one, doesn't have to be one I give you guys in class. It can be anything you find on the internet that you like the most. When we get back to class, I will have one as a handout for you guys and have it posted in the classroom on the wall as a poster. That is really helpful to describe the different types of tire wear. As you can see here, we're looking for toe wear. That's an alignment problem. Camber wear, center wear for overinflation, edge wear for underinflation, patch wear, maybe it's out of balance and the tire's hopping a little bit going down the road, and cup wear, something's bent or maybe suspension component wore out. So those are some of the things we're looking for on a tire inspection. All right, here's some tools and equipment that you will be commonly used for tire maintenance and service. An air pressure gauge, a tread depth gauge. This is an approved safety inspection tread depth gauge for the state of Pennsylvania as well. A valve stem installation tool for pulling it through the wheel. A valve core remover and installer. A torque wrench, and some various tools for TPMS sensors, it looks like. Over here we have a tire changing machine, a dunk tank that we're going to fill with water and put the tire in to check for leaks, a tire spreader that we can mount the tire in and open the tire up to make it a little easier to do a proper repair, a tire buffer to clean up the rubber on the inside and prepare it for a patch plug, a stitching tool to help install the patch plug. This is a tire inflation cage, and it's recommended to have a tire inflation cage when inflating it, especially on equipment and heavy trucks, things with higher pressure. You won't see this as common in an automotive shop, but if you go work at a big truck or a medium duty truck place or an equipment place, you will definitely see tire inflation cages. All right, over here, a tire and wheel balancer. Wheel balancing can be something that is a service. The car comes in for just a service. Maybe you sell them a tire rotation with a balance, because over time, balance changes. Also, whenever you're replacing a tire, you will always balance it afterwards. TPMS, or tire pressure monitoring system, relearn tool, and also this is an advanced diagnostic tool that you can do some diagnostics with, and a wheel weight installer hammer and remover. All right, so these are just some common tools that you'll be using through tire service and maintenance. A little bit about tire gauges. Your common portable pocket-sized tire gauge. All right, a lot of mechanics, you'll notice, carry these around in their uniform shirt pockets. It's easy accessible. It's right there. I recommend doing what I do. Every time you go to the parts store to pick up something for an oil change or something for your car, just buy one of these. They're usually a couple bucks sitting at the counter by the cash register, and throw it in your car. So each one of my cars have just a old-fashioned tire gauge in it because you never know when you're going to need it. Fixed shop gauges. This is an example mounted on a tire machine. I'm sure you guys have probably seen it on our tire machines. And an inflator with a gauge. This is a common one that I like to use as a flat rate tech in a dealership because it's just quicker. I can put it on there, check the tire pressure, add tire pressure, and move on to the next one. These are becoming more and more common. When we're setting the tire pressure, we need to remember a couple things. We are going to be using the tire inflation pressure placard that is located somewhere in the driver's door jamb. It's usually on the door or in the B-pillar somewhere. And this is going to give you the information on the proper tire size along with the inflation pressure. Now, with that said, I have down here, set PSI cold, and I have it highlighted here. The tires are recommended to be set at the pressure at cold. This is a cold setting because remember, as the tires heat up, the pressure is going to build. So this is what they recommend, 30 PSI on whatever vehicle this is when the tires are cold. That means the car hasn't been driven for a while and it's just been kind of sitting. If it's fresh off the highway and coming in for something, you may want to let it sit for a little while you do maybe your other services and let the tires cool down before you set it. This is the incorrect way to set a tire pressure. This is the most common mistake I believe people make with their tires. When I ask people, well, where do you find the tire spec? The majority of the class and the majority of people will say, well, it's on the side of the tire. Well, no, that's not exactly correct. There is a tire pressure on the side of the tire with the load rating, but that's the maximum pressure that that tire can safely hold at that load. That's not what's recommended to have in that tire for a specific vehicle. For example, I may have the same size tire on my Pontiac Grand Prix and it might call for 30 PSI, but the exact same size tire on a Ford Taurus might call for 34 PSI or 35 PSI, whatever. So the manufacturers determine what the recommended tire pressure should be set at, and they label it on the tire placard on the car for that specific vehicle. The suspension design of the vehicle, the weight of the vehicle, is it front wheel drive, is it rear wheel drive, all that stuff determines what the tire pressure should be for that specific vehicle. So if you're setting your car's tire pressures based on this, that is incorrect. Some notes to remember with this. It should be checked monthly, at least. All right. Obviously, if you think you have a problem, if you think you have a low tire, it looks a little low, just check it. It takes 2 minutes. But at bare minimum, it should be checked monthly. Remember, your life is riding on those tires. Or your customer's life, if you're in a shop, are riding on those tires. So check them monthly. Also, another note to remember is 2008 newer model year are required to have TPMS. All right. They may have a readout or they might just have a warning light. And there's definitely special reset procedures for every vehicle. All right. So for example, some vehicles just have the light on the dash when a tire is low, but it doesn't tell you exactly which tire or what the pressure is. But you may have another vehicle that has a readout on the dash and it'll tell you what the left front, left rear, right rear is. If it's low, it'll flash and show you that this one's 27 and these are 35 or whatever it may be. So they're all a little different, but they all usually have a special reset procedure. In 2008 newer, the federal government mandated that this was a requirement on passenger vehicles. Nitrogen. I don't know if anybody's ever seen these in a car. It's not, doesn't seem to be as popular around here as it is in more populated areas. If you're working in a shop closer down to Pittsburgh in the city or where I grew up, kind of closer in the Washington, D.C. and the bigger areas, nitrogen's become pretty popular over the last 10 years or so. Takes a special machine, obviously, and fill them with nitrogen, but some dealerships are filling all their new cars right off the truck with nitrogen because some of the advantages are, it permeates the rubber at a much slower rate. It's much less reactive. It doesn't degrade the rubber as bad as regular air. And it prevents oxidation of the rubber and corrosion of the wheel. This is a big one. All the cars nowadays, or even the base model cars, run on an aluminum wheel. There's not very many steel wheels out there anymore. So the aluminum wheels tend to corrode a lot quicker with the normal air in there, because when you put that normal air in there, there is humidity, there's moisture in that air. Now it's trapped inside the tire. There's moisture and humidity outside the tire. If it gets along this bead in here, it creates a corroded seal, and then the tires slowly leak, and you have to take the tire off and clean them. So they found that using nitrogen slows that. I won't say it prevents it, but it definitely slows that down. You can usually tell if a car has had nitrogen installed in the tires by the green valve stem cap, because if somebody did their job right and they filled it with the machine, when they're done, they're supposed to replace the black caps with a green cap, so anybody in the future knows, hey, this has nitrogen in it, so you need to fill this with nitrogen again. What are some maintenance services that you're going to see and do? I'm just going to talk about some of the basic services that you're going to do as an entry-level technician and that anybody can do on their own cars to prolong the life of their tires. First thing is going to be a tire rotation. And here are some different examples for different vehicles. Some advantages to rotating your tires in your car are, it gives you opportunity to look at your tires because you're going to have your tires off, so you can take a good look at the inside of the tires, the sidewalls, the tread, all that stuff. And you can learn a lot by the way that your rest of your car is holding up by looking at the tires. So if you have a worn suspension component or something bent, that's going to show up on tire wear, and now you can see that while you're rotating the tires. The biggest advantage to tire rotation every so often is to prolong the life of the tires. If you just kept the tires in the same spot for 30,000 miles, the front tires are going to wear out because the front tires are always turning left and right. They have the weight of the engine over them, the rest of the drivetrain if it's a front-wheel drive. They take a lot of the braking as you're stopping, so there's a lot more friction. So if we rotate these around periodically, it's going to even out the wear and make the tires last longer. Every manufacturer has their specifics on when and how long you should go before rotating your tires. A good rule of thumb that most technicians will probably agree with me on is every 6,000 miles. For me, since I change my oil every 3,000 miles pretty religiously, I tend to rotate my tires every other oil change. It's just easy for me to keep track of. It's easy for me to remember when the last time it was I did it, and it just forces me to be in kind of a routine. So I know every other oil change I rotate my tires. Here's some different patterns. All vehicles, you can always do the common front to back. That's what most technicians and most shops will do because it's a little quicker, easier. All vehicles, you could do a cross rotate, but then there are specifics for front wheel drive and rear and four wheel drive vehicles. As you'll see, here's the front wheel drives. You're going to take the front tires straight to the back, and the backs and cross them over. Rear wheel drive is the same but opposite. The backs go forward, the fronts cross over. These are the best way to do it because you're not only moving the tires back and forth, but you're flipping them to turn them a different direction. So they'll wear a different direction. Not saying that these can't be used, but most manufacturers in the owner's manual or service manual is going to have a specific procedure like one of these for that vehicle. Okay. All-wheel drive vehicles, this is a good way to do it because all four tires are putting power down all the time. So this is usually recommended for all-wheel drive. Remember, always refer to the owner's manual or the service manual for that specific vehicle, the way they recommend to rotate them. Now, some key things to remember. If the tires are directional tires, you're limited to what you can do. They're directional tires. We can't flip them from side to side because the directional rotation will be going in the wrong direction. So we need to go straight to back, straight forward, front to back on directional tires. So keep an eye on that. Some cars have staggered sizes. The older Cadillac SRXs in the mid-2000s had a smaller diameter tire on the front and a bigger tire on the back. You can't rotate those in any of these patterns. The only way you could rotate those, if they're not a directional tire, is to flip them side to side. Now, if they're a directional tire, you can't rotate them at all because you can't go front to back because they're a different size, and you can't turn them to the other side of the vehicle because they'll be rotating in the wrong direction. So pay close attention to what type of tire you have. Is it a non-directional tire or is it a directional tire? Are the tire sizes staggered front to rear? Make sure you pay close attention to that stuff. All right, and balancing tires. Why do we balance tires?
Why do we balance wheels? We balance to cancel out the uncomfortable vibration that can be felt when an unbalanced wheel is traveling at speed. But balance is not the only cause of wheel and tire-induced vibration. A vehicle may have 4 perfectly balanced wheels and still experience vibration. Vibration can also be caused by a bent rim, how the tire fits on the rim, or by construction characteristics of the tire. These factors contribute to road force, which is the change in force acting on a wheel assembly as it rolls. Fortunately, road force is easy to correct if you can measure it. Road force balancers emulate driving conditions by pressing a roller against the tire. The roller measures the road force for an assembly, and the balancer suggests corrections to minimize or eliminate the road force vibrations. The most common corrective actions are match mounting, the process of rotating the tire on the rim to reduce road force; bead massage, a technique of exercising the new tire to better fit the rim; or placing higher road force assemblies in less sensitive wheel positions on the vehicle, like the rear. Balancing is always required to eliminate vibrations, but eliminating all wheel and tire-induced vibration requires measuring and correcting road force as well.
Okay, so we're going to be balancing tires for many different problems, all right? A lot of times when you're balancing a tire, it's because you have a wobble, shake, or vibration concern. Or you're balancing a tire because you just replaced the tire with a new tire. Either way, you have to use a special balancing machine to do that. Once we get back to the shop, we will learn how to use our road force balancer and our normal balancer to do that. A balance can also be sold as a service. You know, every 10,000 miles, it's not a bad idea to balance your tires, because as the tires wear over time, they are going to change balance. So it's nice to, go back recommend every 10,000 miles to balance your tires. Some other problems that you're going to be looking for, the tires can normally lose a small amount of air over time. All right, so flat tires are not fun. This requires periodic inspection and filling of the tires. Sometimes, that's a normal amount that can happen, and that's a common thing. Now, if there's a significant air loss, that's due to a puncture or a valve stem core leak, or the beads are damaged and corroded. And we'll go over that more when we get back to school. Run out. You might have a run out problem. When you have run out, there's 2 different types. There's a lateral run out and there's a radial run out. All right. If you have a lateral run out, it usually causes a steering shake. If you have a radial run out, it usually causes a suspension shake, because radial's up and down, so it bounces the suspension, and lateral side to side, so it causes the steering wheel to shake. It can be due to incorrect manufacturing or damage to components, such as a broken belt. Lateral runout can be caused by incorrect manufacturing or damage to components, such as the rim or a broken belt. All right, so there's some things that you'd be looking for. Now, another common complaint is pulling to one side. It's a very common problem. Let's see if I can get this playing here. There we go.
Steering forces generated by the tires may cause a continual pull. Locating the faulty tire or tires is a matter of substituting positions and then looking for a change in the symptom. With the vehicle set on the alignment rack according to the manufacturer's guidelines, place the transmission in park, set the parking brakes, and chock the wheels. Lift and securely support the vehicle with the wheels clear of the runways. Perform a thorough pre-alignment inspection. While doing so, pay particular attention to the condition of the tires. Check for proper application, size, tread design, and look for any abnormal tread wear or physical damage. Verify and adjust air pressure to specifications. Attention to these details can often locate the problem quickly. Now, mark and record each wheel's location for later reference. Then remove the front wheels, switch positions, and perform a road test. If the pull changes direction, A tire force condition may be present in one or both of the front tires. In this case, to reduce the effects, move one of the tires to the rear axle or invert it on its rim. If altering the location of the wheels eliminates the pull, always refer to the vehicle and/or tire manufacturer's guidelines to determine if they may be left in the new positions. When faced with directional tires or different size wheels front to rear, rotation diagnosis is not an available option. Instead, you must substitute tires at each wheel position and then road test. When the troubleshooting procedure is finished, always tighten the lug nuts to the manufacturer's specified torque and in the proper sequence.
All right, so it seems kind of primitive, but yet it's an effective way. Usually just by swapping the tires around, you can, diagnose what is actually causing the tire pull, which tire it is. The key to that is documenting and writing down or marking the tire where it was originally located so you can kind of keep track of that. A lot of guys forget to do that, and then all of a sudden they're halfway through it and like, well, I don't remember if I moved this tire over here or over there. So make sure you mark the tires and write down where they were. Keep up the good work. All right? Wortman out.